Senator Cotter. Oh, Senator Cotter. Okay. Yes, please. Sorry.
Honourable Senators, I rise today to share my concern and some thoughts about rising incidents of hate towards 2SLGBTQ plus people in Canada, and children in particular, by speaking to Inquiry Number 5, which draws attention to the 2023 budget, and in particular the importance of the development of the National Anti-Hate Action Plan. Honourable colleagues, last Thursday, an Economist magazine headline declared, "The culture wars have come to Canada." The article was about the so-called parental rights movement's influence on education laws and policies in New Brunswick and Saskatchewan, which take rights to privacy, safety, and health away from trans children and youth and put educators in a very difficult position. Colleagues, honestly, I'm still shaken from my own encounter on September 20th with the front line of the divisive and polarizing culture wars. As I was trying to cross Wellington Street to get to my East Block office, I came across two groups of people separated by lines of police officers. On the south side of Wellington Street were people dressed in rainbow attire with signs encouraging people to teach love, not hate, to protect trans kids, and stating that trans rights are human rights. In Canada, we know gender identity and gender expression are prohibited grounds for discrimination under the Canadian Human Rights Act. So I was okay. Across the street on Parliament Hill were people who had come to protest as part of the 1 million March for Children. There I saw signs like boys, boys, girls, girls, hands off our kids, parents know best, democracy not dictatorship, leave the kids alone. This may seem innocuous, but there was a dangerous subtext. According to the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, using a phrase like parental rights that many parents would find natural and unobjectionable as a stand-in for anti-trans rights and anti-children's rights, that movement drives not only to anti-2SLGBTQ plus activists, but also concerned and misinformed parents to endorse that philosophy and join that movement. I was profoundly disturbed by what I was witnessing. It felt dangerous for 2LGBTQ plus people and kids. It felt dangerous for parents who appeared to be caught in a web of deceit. And it felt dangerous, frankly, for Canada. Amarnath Amarasingham, a Queen's University expert on extremism, says, and I quote, "Anti-COVID stuff and anti-vaccine stuff was like a bug light to so many different movements. And now all those movements are listening to whatever the next issue is going to be and are following it." He predicted the shift to LGBTQ plus issues. In the Toronto Star article, Bruce Arthur said, "Protests like this are like a thermometer for societal health, and the fever is rising." In their article, How the Parental Rights Movement Gave Rise to the 1 Million March for Children, Professors Mason and Hamilton of Mount Royal University explain how the parental rights movement is not new. In the 70s in the US, parental rights and protecting the children mantras were used to oppose protections for lesbians and gay men against discrimination. And today, that parental rights movement in the US is fueled by Moms for Liberty, a known anti-government extremist organization with ties to white nationalists, including the Proud Boys. Groups like Action for Canada have taken up the parental rights torch in Canada. They're calling for the end of inclusive curriculum, end of inclusive, and restricting the use of chosen names and pronouns in schools. The two groups behind the Millions March for Children are Family Heart Icon Freedom, which targets educational content on sexual orientation and gender identity resources, and the Hands Off Our Kids organization, a moniker clearly meant to evoke grooming and pedophilia, which is protesting so-called LGBTQIA ideology, whatever that is, in schools. So, colleagues, what do we do about this? First, we need to listen to the people most at risk of harm and act accordingly. Alex Harris, a transgender student in New Brunswick, said the protests and discourse are creating a scary and dangerous environment for queer students. While his parents are supportive, he knows other kids who would be at risk of physical abuse or being kicked out of the home if they came out to their parents. Second, we need to call out the people and organizations leading the so-called parental rights movement, shine a light on their true agenda, and debunk the disinformation they are feeding to parents. At the same time as we do that, though, the Canadian Anti-Hate Network warns that, and I quote, framing all parents who desire to be actively involved in their children's lives and who are personally troubled by the idea of another adult knowing things about their child that they themselves may not, framing them as bigots and bad parents does not help schools be safer. It only drives those people further into the parental rights movement. This anti-hate network, Canada's anti-hate network, suggests that we focus on shared values such as all children deserve to be safe and supported. And therefore, if all children deserve to be safe and supported, we should all think about the needs of the most vulnerable when we make policies that affect them. The third point is the importance of communicating clearly the evidence about sexual orientation, about gender identity and expression, and about measures that work to make our schools and communities safe and inclusive for everyone. And thank you to Senator Osler for starting us off with some of that evidence today. Fourth, and important for all of us here in this room, is the matter of politics. The last thing that vulnerable children and youth need is to be pawns on a political chessboard. In writing about the Saskatchewan situation, Globe and Mail columnist Andrew Coyne said, and I quote, "But then this isn't about the parents or the children. It's about politics. It's about pandering to obscure fears and broader resentments." Colleagues, I also concur with the Canadian Civil Rights Liberties Association when they say, and I change my tone now, I quote, "In Canada, people are compassionate and decent. Canadians care about rights and freedoms, about evidence-based policy, and about the well-being of children." I was so happy to hear that today in the Nova Scotia legislature, many members from all parties spoke about protecting the rights of LGBTQ plus people in that legislature. Wonderful news. Honourable Senators, it's time for us all to stand with our 2SLGBTQ plus brothers, our sisters, our children, our grandchildren, our colleagues, and our neighbours. Let's come together in unity here in this upper chamber of Canada's Parliament to pledge right now our commitment to respecting and upholding their rights as the laws of our land dictate, and because it is the right thing to do. And let's ensure that Canada does not get dragged deeper into someone else's culture wars. Let's make sure the government develops a robust anti-hate action plan with effective mechanisms to combat any current and future threats to the safety, well-being, and rights of 2SLGBTQ plus Canadians. Honourable Senators, I hope you will all agree, we need a Canada where everyone can flourish without fear. Thank you.